Touchdown Tampa Bay. You're listening to the Pewtercast.
Welcome to the Pewtercast, week number 1, Buc'In the News, or whatever we're going to call it for this year. Ren, we are back to our regular schedule, kicking off the official 2020 season. Buccaneers versus Saints. We're here to do the rundown from this entire week. Take a look at this game coming up, man. I am excited. Buccaneers playing in less than 48 hours.
Yeah, we saw the Chiefs dismantle the Texans last night.
That was embarrassing.
So now everyone's doing their panic pickups for fantasy already. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to make the Hall of Fame. Congratulations, young man. But yeah, Sunday, I was telling Cheryl, before that game, it's like I'm more excited about the Hall of Fame game than I was for that game last night.
Yeah.
And then it started. And I was like, okay, here we are. And I'm not really like super psyched and pumped about this Bucs game on Sunday because there hasn't been the buildup. There hasn't been the preseason. There hasn't been all this stuff. So, but, it's probably going to be really hard to fall asleep tomorrow night.
Right. I understand. I definitely understand because I am super jacked, super pumped. Now, listen, this is back to our regular scheduled programming. For those of you that are joining us new this year, this is what we call our Buc'In the News Show. And here's how this show works. Basically, it's Friday night. The Buccaneers work week is done. There's nothing left for them to do except for play the game. So this is the spot where all the news articles are out, all the headlines are out, all the injury reports are out, all the roster moves are done. There's nothing left for the team to do except for play the game. So that being said, this is the show where we're going to go through the roster moves. We'll go through the headlines that have come out this week, do a wrap-up of those. We'll look at the injury report, and we'll talk a little bit about the game coming up this weekend against the Saints. And Ren, I can't be more excited. Hopefully this show gets us even more amped up and pumped up because the Buccaneers are playing real football real soon.
Yes. Glad you have such a great co-host to move things along there.
Were you like just taking a drink like right as I stopped talking? Is that what it was?
No, there wasn't. Well,
anything good?
Yeah. You know how I hate that. That's not a question.
No, it's not. It's okay.
But I gave my comments about how excited about it I was, and then you gave your comments.
There we are.
The end.
Well, we are. Gil. Gil says that the Bucs better be as good as my appetite.
That's not nice.
No, not. It's all right.
I don't think he's ever seen you eat.
I don't think so. It's amazing. People, yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to go there. Hey,
okay.
We have a special guest, but before we bring our special guest in to help us talk about all of this kind of stuff, a little bit of business to take care of. You guys have heard this across. You've been listening to sports podcasts lately. You have heard this read. MyBookie.com has been all over the place, and they've given everybody the exact same ad. Like everybody's had the exact same ad, which was really weird. So they've asked us, don't use that ad, just do something personal. So here it is for mybookie.com. You guys go out there.
Wait, this is a Brent Allen original?
This is a Brent Allen original. That's good. This is my marketing skills being thrown into the mix here.
Do you get paid more for this? You should. I mean, they ask you, hey, make up your own ad for us, and then read it.
We get more. But hey, listen, here's what you guys have to do. The season's back, so go to mybookie.com, and they are going to double your first deposit when you use the promo code OVERTIME. That's the network that we're a part of. Use the promo code OVERTIME, all one word, mybookie.com. You guys can go out there, and you can do prop bets. You can do bonuses. You can do cross-sport wagers. You can bet live in-game. Ren, I'm not a gambler. I don't know what the heck a prop bet is.
Okay.
Do you know what a prop bet is?
Not by definition, but it's things like who gets the first touchdown, which team wins.
Is that what it is?
Which team wins the kickoff? Is there going to be a safety? Pick will one team get a pick six? Who's going to be the person with the pick six? Who's going to throw the pick six? Stuff like that.
There you go. I got to tell you, I'm not, like I said, I'm not a gambler. I have heard this enough. I'm kind of interested to try this out and see if it's any good. So I plan on, at least for one game, just trying it out and seeing. So if you guys are like me, or maybe you're an old school gambler, you've been through all this stuff before, go over to mybookie.com. Promo code overtime will double your first deposit. You guys have heard all these ads, so go for it. And by the way, Overtime Media Group is kicking in a special little like extra for you guys who are using this promo code.
What are we doing?
All you got to do when you make your deposit, you take a screenshot or a screen grab of your like MyBookie account or the deposit page that shows that you did it, and email it to Overtime at advertisecast. That's advertisecast.com.
That's
just
catchy.
email it over there, and you're going to be entered in to win $500 cash.
Ooh.
Yeah. So that's not added into your account at mybookie.com. Like, they'll give you $500 cash. So you guys do that. That's little.
So I put in
extra
$100. They give me $100, and I have $200 to gamble away.
Yes.
And then if I take a screen grab of me showing Overtime that I put in $200 and I email it to them, I get entered in to win $500.
That's right.
All right.
That's right. So mybookie.com.
So for $100, I get $700.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. That'll get you. So you guys go over there and do that. All right. All that out of the way now, Ren. It's time to bring in our special guest. He is a good friend of the show, a guy that we may have a little bit of bone to pick with because he's beat us at our going game here in the last couple of years. Our good friends over at Locked On Bucs, David Harrison, joining us tonight without his partner in crime, James Jarko. We'll get James on later in the season, I'm sure. David, welcome to the Pewtercast, my friend.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm very excited, David.
I am very excited.
I was trying to do a Ren impression there.
All right.
Exactly.
We're gonna need you. We're gonna need you to come out of your shell on this, David. Come on, a little personality here. A little personality.
I'll do my best.
David,
Thank you.
welcome to the show, man. Listen, we're basically gonna, I think, talking in this one show what you and James have been talking about in snippets over the course of the entire week. So hopefully you're ready for it all.
It's been a lot. Yeah, it's been a lot of stuff to talk about.
Well, guys, listen, this is also I want to say hello to everybody who's watching us live out at YouTube and out on Facebook. If you guys are listening to the podcast feed later and you decide you want to go actually watch the show, you can go check us out over on those two places as well. But David, you know how this show works. This hasn't changed from the last couple of seasons we've done it. Roster moves. We're going to add in the NFL is doing this thing where teams can protect players. So we'll talk about those guys. We'll talk about some of the headlines that have come out, the injury report, and then we'll talk about maybe some matchups to watch. We're going to bring a new segment. It's a new old segment. We're going to bring that back at the end of the show. We'll talk about that when we get there. I'm excited for that one. So let's start at the top of the list. Let's start at roster moves. Now, the last show we did, Ren, for everybody out there who might be wondering, was our initial cut down, that initial 53. So we haven't covered anything since then. So this could go all the way back to last Saturday. That being said, as expected, as we talked about in our last show, the Buccaneers have placed John Molchon and John Hurst on injured reserve and used those two spots to sign Leonard Fournette, who was very, very expected, and then to re-sign A.Q. Shipley, who's the veteran center backup they signed during camp, released him for 24 hours just so they could get the guys to IR, and everything's peachy. We're back.
Yeah, that was a smooth move by the Buccaneers. A.Q. Shipley, since he was a vested veteran, he didn't have to pass through waivers, so no one can claim him. Right. It's basically just a gentleman's agreement, like, hey, we're gonna cut you, but we'll bring you right back. And he probably knew that before they signed him in the first place, possibly. Yeah. And so they could get these guys that they liked a lot, but had a little nagging injury, put them on the short list, because if they went on the IR before the initial 53 cut down, they're on the IR for the season. But if they wait till after the roster cuts, they can be back as soon as 3 weeks. And I'm excited about John Molchon. I love his mustache. I like the way he plays. I like what BA thinks about him. What have you guys been saying, David, over there at Locked On, about Molchon, and what do you guys think about him?
Yeah, I mean, lots of good stuff coming out from training camp about John and what he's been able to do. And as an undrafted rookie free agent, it's always even more impressive when you throw in the combination of no OTAs, no mini camps, no rookie camps, and then no full blown training camp with preseason opportunities. So when undrafted guys get to come in and make that type of impact right off the bat, it shows you, one, not only their professionalism and dedication to what they're doing, because they've had even more time than your typical rookie to get out of shape if they were going to do so, to come into camp ready to fire off and then come in. And offensive line, I mean, it's already one of the hardest positions to play in the National Football League because you're 1/5 of a unit that's got to operate in unison. But then you come from the college game to the NFL game, it just makes it that much harder. So it speaks a lot to his, at least his professionalism. I mean, who knows where his career is going to go right now, but at least as far as getting a start to his career, that's about as good as you can get. And then this is probably the best depth I've seen on the offensive line for the Buccaneers in at least a handful of years. Yeah. I mean, Ren, Brent, we were at training camp last year, and I mean, right. I'm only going to out the three of us, but it wasn't just the three of us actively making fun of essentially or just cracking jokes about the lack of depth on the Buccaneers offensive line. So, I mean, to see this group this year, I was asked, earlier this week about Zach Shackelford from your boy Q from the Locked On Raiders podcast, who also has a Houston-based radio show for ESPN. And, it's like he's actually a rather talented guy there in the depth as well. But he kind of gets lost in the shuffle because there's so many other names to talk about on that second team.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to point out the depth, all right, I'm looking at it right now. The depth of the offensive line. Mm-hmm. We got Josh Wells, who's a veteran player. We got AQ Shipley, who's a veteran player. We got Joe Haig, who's a veteran player. And we got Aaron Stinney, who I think is a veteran player. Correct me if I'm wrong. So all of our depth are people who've been playing for quite a while. Now,
or at least been in the league.
Do what?
Or at least been in the league a little while.
Yeah, at least been in the league for quite a while. But I know like Shipley and Haig, those guys have both been starters at some point. Josh Wells, I know, filled in as a starter once in a while. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the rest of his. I think Stinney has kind of bounced around, but I mean, Stinney's been around for quite a while too. So when we talk about the depth, this isn't a year where they're developing the next group of offensive linemen. Because I mean, taking a look across the top, we've got the entire right side of our line is really young, and the others are in their prime right now. So it's an interesting group at offensive line. Hopefully it works out better for us, here in the end.
And we've done something which I think everyone has, especially myself, was we just glossed over the other guy. Like, who the heck is this John Hurst dude? I know, right. He's like from West Georgia or Western Georgia State or something. Like, if you look up his numbers as a junior, like what he did as freshman, sophomore, and junior, like they're remarkably unimpressive, like almost superhero-like unimpressive. They're so unimpressive, it's impressive how unimpressive they are. So just what he did off his senior season, he got here from like, what David, do you know where it's like West Georgia State of the Blind?
Yeah.
Very
small school.
Yeah, like the fighting like big birds or something. I mean, I've never even heard of that school, even through basketball. And, I still don't know anything about this guy, except that they like him. Like, do you, like, what have you picked up about him during this training camp this year? Anything?
Yeah, it's a raw talent type of thing. I mean, when he was picked up by the team or signed by the team after the draft, he's a guy that I looked into just a little bit. And, I mean, you see the upside, you see the potential there. So, to take a flyer on him, to bring him into camp, see if some of that athleticism can turn into NFL production someday, put him on your practice squad, stuff like that. He's not a guy, like you already referenced, they kept him on the active roster long enough so that they could put him on the IR without having to lose him for the entire season. It was a smart roster management move from Jason Light and the staff there. And so that's the reason they did it. But it's not like he's a guy that I don't think anybody should anticipate him coming in and challenging for even the fifth receiver or fourth receiver job anytime soon. He's got some raw ability. The undrafted free agent receiver, honestly, that I was looking at, mostly coming into the season, hoping there was going to be a legit training camp preseason, was Josh Pearson out of Jacksonville State. I mean, that's a guy he's got some length to him. He's got some speed to him. He had some, record type setting ability, granted at a smaller type school, not Power 5 conference type stuff. But again, it's guys who's got raw ability, but he's also got production to go with it. And production's not everything in the college game. We've seen plenty of guys come out of, quote unquote, nowhere to have very successful NFL careers. But when you have all that raw ability and you have production coming in with it, it just gives you a little bit more confidence. So Pearson was someone I was looking forward to seeing. Obviously, unfortunately, didn't really get to see him. I didn't hear a whole lot about him coming out of camp and not a lot of people talking about him. So He sticks around on the practice squad, so I mean, at least the Buccaneers seem to see some sort of promise in him, if anything. So hopefully someday, maybe next year, we get to see these guys actually play live football in the preseason, and then we get to see if they do have that kind of Adam Humphries type magic where you can see them on the active roster someday.
So you know nothing about Hurst either.
No, I mean, not outside of just he's got raw athleticism. He's better at football than the average Joe.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. The first time I heard about him was when they said they were keeping him on the 53. I don't remember hearing a word about him before then.
I was like, he's still alive, like from the actor. Like I'm like, wow. I'm like, oh, it's a Bucs tweet. Never mind.
So that was very expected. Maybe slightly unexpected, although I think if you thought about it, it's not surprising. The Buccaneers also add to their practice squad a second-year kicker in Greg Joseph after shipping off Elliott Fry and Matt Gay. Got them both out of here. But they bring in a second-year kicker. I don't know anything about this kid. I'm not even sure where he came from. But he's just here for the practice squad. If Suckup gets COVID, they're going to bring him up.
Yeah, that's pretty much why he's there. And oddly enough, he was the guy that took over for Suckup in Tennessee when Suckup injured himself.
Oh, did he?
They tried to rush him.
Okay.
They didn't say they rushed him back, but they brought him back, and then Suckup was terrible, like 1 for 8 or something crazy. So they put him on IR, and this was the guy that replaced him. So, I think that BA and Jason's idea of a kicker were on two different spectrums until this year. Jason's like, hey, look at this guy. He can win us a game from 69 yards. And BA's like, I just want him to make everything inside the 50. And you go, oh, yeah, I found the guy. Here he is. And it's like, but finally after, there was reportedly there's been some things about how Gay handled the offseason or handles himself outside. Nothing bad, but which makes it even more mysterious. But they just weren't really happy with sort of what the way he handled himself or the way he went about his craft outside of the building. And with being all in and him still having that bugaboo from the right hash mark in between the 35 and the 45, BA's mentality won out, and Jason Light had to cut bait. And so we got a guy who, he has made, I think he owns the NFL record, was 56 in a row field goals he made from inside the 50. And then he got hurt. Yeah, he owns the record. 56 in a row. Now, we all know that means he's going to miss the very first kick inside the 50 as a Buccaneer. We know it's going to happen. But it's going to happen. It has to happen.
He's due.
He's due. There you go. He's due. So, but, David talked about it. I think, we were off the air. And, it wasn't a competition. No. They brought in Suckup, saw he could kick. He's not injured anymore. Okay, that's it. Bye-bye. And then, like you said, Brent, Joseph is the COVID relief plan.
Yeah. And let's go ahead and talk about this. I had this for later on, but Bruce Arians talking about this. He said this. He goes, they're asking him about Suckup, and he goes, well, hopefully, knock on wood, hopefully he's reliable.
Yeah.
And then it's like, but I feel very, 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 very comfortable with it. I'm like, no, you don't. You don't feel comfortable right now with this.
It's going to take me years to get comfortable with a Buccaneers kicker. I don't care if Suckup doesn't miss all year long. Right. I'll come into next year going, I don't know. He's due.
Yeah. I can remember the last couple of years, when I didn't say this about Folk, but I remember when Santos came in. I feel like when Pat Murray came in at some point, and I know I said this about Gay, of it's like when he goes to kick the ball, I don't find I feel like I could get up and go get a drink from the fridge. I don't have to watch it. I don't feel all tense. And look at where we are with all of those guys right now. Yeah. And Light said this basically in his press conference, that it basically the Suckup versus Gay decision came down to consistency.
Right.
Gay wasn't consistent. Suckup was. So when they brought in Suckup, it wasn't a battle. It wasn't a tryout. They brought him in to just take that spot. And they let Matt Gay go. So, and as you said, Bren, Greg Joseph is the COVID relief. Because could you guys remember ever seeing a kicker taking up a practice squad spot? Now I know we have an expanded practice squad this year, but
No, I mean in a normal situation that would be incredibly surprising.
right. So we have that.
And
let's see
dumb.
here.
That too.
Off of our practice squad, the Rams plucked one of our guys, Raymond Calais. He is gone. So to fill that spot, the Buccaneers added running back Kenjon Burner. Now this would be one of those, like, there's no restriction to who you put on practice squad this year,
Right.
Right, because he was drafted in 2013. So when you talk about a vet placed on the team on the practice squad, this is a guy about as veteran as you can get.
Yeah, he's been around a minute, and he's been around some other teams. I think the last team he played for was the Atlanta Falcons, and he's a guy who's got some, going back to his college days. I mean, he's got some production in him. He's got some skill in him. He's not, again, you're not looking at him challenging Leonard Fournette, Shady McCoy, Rojo anytime soon. It's a COVID situation. They have a guy with some NFL experience they can bring up in an emergency if they need to. And that's kind of the big thing. They've already got this guy tested. He's going to continue to get tested as part of the organization. So if someone tests positive or gets hurt, they don't have to worry about that grace period between the initial test and getting them confirmed and getting them into the meetings and everything else. So that's really, that's really what it boils down to. And we talked to JC. You guys have had him on your show, JC Cornell, the founder CEO of the Draft Network, and we asked him, is that any type of indictment on anybody on the roster? And he really kind of pointed to Keyshawn Vaughn, which I know since we had that conversation, there's been some more positive feedback from him coming out of camp. But up until that point, really all of it had been mostly negative. It's negative again with that grain of salt of no OTAs, no mini camps, but still, anytime you have a third round draft pick coming in underwhelming to the point where the team feels compelled to add 2 veteran running backs to the group in front of him in the depth chart, that's not a good sign for anything. But then, you go back to Rojo, you see the leap a guy can make from year 1 to year 2. So, the game's not over for Keyshawn, just not a good start. Good to see that he's apparently doing a little bit better now at the tail end, as we get towards the season, see how he continues to do in practice. But yeah, Kenyon, I mean, good guy with ups. If you have to bring him on the field, it's not a good situation anyway, but at least he's got the experience and he's got some production under his belt to bring to the field.
Is this a guy who's more like Jacquizz Rodgers, maybe even Dario Ngobale? Like they're that third running back on the team. Like this isn't a guy who's
he's definitely more Jack Rodgers than he is Dare. 5'9", 195. I'd expect to see him more in a return game type of situation than I would in an actual running situation. But yeah, he's just an emergency guy, like you guys said, like with the kicker. Any normal year they probably would just roll with the running backs they've got. But given all the circumstances of this year and the extended practice squad, go ahead and fill that spot with some experience.
The signing of Candace Bergen would have moved my needle more than the signing.
Fair enough. Well, with that, we've probably spent more than enough time talking about this guy. Let's go on. This is technically a roster move, so we're gonna talk about it here. But quite frankly, this is probably the biggest news out of the entire week. Buccaneers signed quarterback Josh Rosen, releasing Reed Stinnett. This happened actually relatively quickly after last week. We just haven't had a chance to talk about it yet. I know you guys have talked about it quite a bit, David. But Josh Rosen was owed $3-4 million from the Dolphins. He's still getting paid from there, and he decides to come to the Bucs, turning down offers from other teams to be on their active roster. Says, "No, I'm gonna go be on their practice squad and hang out with Tom Brady. Maybe get a ring this year. Who knows?" But Josh Rosen, Ren, actually, I want to go to you first on this one since you haven't had a chance to talk about it at all. Thoughts on Josh Rosen coming to the Buccaneers?
It's a mixed bag for me. When he was first brought on and he was put on the practice squad, it was like, wait a minute, like someone can just take him whenever they want. And then I learned that, no, you can turn down offers from other teams off your practice squad. So that was the next question. I'm listening from the media. I need somebody to find out from the media. Ask BA, ask whoever. But then they actually had Josh Rosen in the presser, and someone asked, like, what are your plans? And he said, my plans is to be here for the entire season. So it looks like he's locked and loaded. So now you don't have to use one of those for lockdown spots or safety bubbles on the practice squad, which aren't really safety bubbles anyway, because you can offer somebody you have over 24 hours to offer somebody a contract during that time and they can leave. So I really don't understand why. I guess so maybe someone gets injured late in practice, like on Wednesday, and it's like, oh, they twisted an ankle and they're going to be out 2 weeks. Then they can't go pick one of those 4 guys. But you can just wait a week and get him next week. I mean, so it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. But as far as Josh Rosen,
about that, I'm sorry, before you go on to that,
sure.
Because I did check into this today. And after checking into this, I don't really understand the point of this protected thing right now. At least in the situation of somebody like Josh Rosen. Maybe I understand it better with the other guys. But in order to be quote unquote plucked off a team, those practice squad guys are effectively free agents. They can talk to other teams at any point. And if another team makes them an offer, they can still decline it.
Yeah.
There is no this isn't like the Saints are going to come grab him. That's not the case. Like, they extend an offer, the player gets a chance to either say yes or say no. Now, in most people's cases, it's a difference of like I don't know what, like $5,000 versus like $28,000 of a paycheck for the week. So 99.9% of the time, it's never an issue. Somebody offers you an active roster spot, you're going to take it. Josh Rosen has chosen to basically stay here, and like, so I don't necessarily understand that point. But the other side is, if they can do that, but the players also, I'm told, when they get offered a spot coming off the practice squad, they will go to the team that they're already with and say, hey, I got an offer from the Rams. Do you want to match it? Do you want to bring me up before I go over there? And the team gets to say yes or no. So there's a process that at least goes through here. And the person I talked to told me they have seen at least a couple of times when the team has gone ahead and brought that practice squad player up to prevent them from going somewhere else. So to your point, Ren, there really doesn't seem to be a reason to put Josh on the protected guy list, and he is this week, and we'll talk about that in a second, but it doesn't seem to be a reason for him anyway to go on that list.
Yeah, and the biggest reason is, you talked about it and danced around it a little bit, is the money. Like, he's getting $3.5 million from Miami to play on Tampa's practice squad and make like $8,000 a week. He might be a vested veteran, so he might be making $15,000 a week. But like you said, when you go to another team, it bounces up to around $30,000, and you get that for 3 weeks. So if you get someone, the Rams call, hello, would you like to make $8,000 a week, or would you like to make $90,000 in the next 3 weeks?
Right.
Like, I'll make and if they let you go, Tampa or the team you just left might put you right back on the practice squad. Right. So it's almost a no-brainer. Yeah, but to finish up with Josh Rosen, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's like we have another Jameis Winston. Like, no matter what you think about him, you're right. He was overdrafted, and he just doesn't get it. He doesn't study enough. He's too cocky. He's a jerk. You have plenty of evidence to support that. Or he's never been put in the right system. He's never been given a fair shake. He's never been on a team that had anybody around him where he had to be the guy, and he's had 7 offensive coordinators in like the past 7 years dating back to college. You're also right. So I think for Josh Rosen to understand that he's not nearly as good as he thinks he is, and to be able to be mature enough to put himself in a situation where he sits on the practice squad. So basically the Bucs are paying nothing. We get him for free and gets to learn from BA, gets to learn from Moore, gets to learn from Tom Brady, gets to learn from, Leftwich. And, it's a great situation, because just like 3 weeks ago, I tweeted out, like, if this coaching staff stays together, Blaine Gabbert's starter 2022. Like, they love him. He looks like a quarterback, and he's got the big arm, and he's BA's guy. Like, that was a real possibility. Now we have a guy, Josh Rosen's only 23. Like, he came out like Jameis's age. So there's a lot of upside there, and I really like the move. But as far as like nailing him down and saying he's going to be this or he's going to be that, and pinning my hopes as a Bucs fans that, Josh Rosen 2022 or 2023 or 2024, whenever Brady decides to leave, like, it's not there yet. But for him and the Bucs, and for people such as me and other fans who were, looking in the future going, what the hell are we going to do in 2 years when Brady quits? Like, at least there's some sort of, steps being made to fix that, or even before the draft or free agency from next year.
David, let me ask you a question about this, because I see this popping up in the chat room from our live broadcast here. Scott Reynolds comes out with a thing asking, is Rosen the quarterback of the future? And he says it's a little too early to do that. But a lot of people are saying, I feel good about Rosen being the guy behind Brady. But as it is right now, Rosen is 3 people behind Brady. He's not the guy behind Brady. Gabbert's the guy behind Brady. Griffin's the guy behind Gabbert. And Rosen's the guy behind Griffin. What do we make of Rosen and kind of to what Ren was just saying as far as the future of this team? Now, Rosen's only committed to a year, right? But what do we make of Rosen? Are we putting too much stock in Rosen right now, a practice squad guy?
I mean, I guess that would just depend on how much stock you're putting in him. I mean, we've had some fun conversations on our show as well about, we actually had a fun, I posed up a fun hypothetical to JC about in 2022, is that going to be the beginning of the 10-year war between Jameis Winston leading the Saints against Josh Rosen and the Buccaneers?
I tweeted it out.
It's fun. You know what I mean? It's fun to think about and consider. But at this point, no, Josh Rosen, the only future that Josh Rosen should be focused on is his own. That from the sounds of his comments, the limited comments we've gotten, that's exactly what he's doing. Is he's here to put himself in the best position moving forward as he can. If that's with the Buccaneers, then I'm sure he'd be happy to do that, and the franchise would be happy to do that as well. If it's not, it'll be somewhere else. He's just looking. He mentioned it. Take a breath. I mean, since he got drafted, I mean, first of all, he got overdrafted. Let's just call it what it is. He's got some talent. He's got some NFL talent, but he's not a top 10 guy. He shouldn't have been a top 10 guy. Maybe he shouldn't have even been a first round guy, but he plays quarterback, so he gets elevated. Goes into a situation with a franchise that is just not on solid footing. The coaching staff is not on solid footing there, obviously, or else they wouldn't have been jettisoned after one season. That's not a firm plan from a franchise. Then he goes to another team that's in a transition plan. They're bailing, or they're jetting out some of their own talent to collect draft picks and other people and trying to figure out their own path. They've got a rookie coming this year. They're probably trying to redshirt if they can. So I mean, Josh really hasn't had a chance to get any real type of footing in the National Football League. So this is his chance to kind of take a pause, take a knee for a minute, collect himself, get his career back on track the way he wants to, and while he's doing it, learn from some of the best in the business. Jameis Winston talked about going to the Harvard of quarterbacks, a quarterback school as well. I referred on Bucs Nation to Josh Rosen joining the Princeton of quarterback schools, and according to U.S. News, Princeton ranks higher than Harvard. So there's that. But I mean, yeah, if you're
like the Oxford or the Cambridge, honestly,
right. I mean, if you're predicting Josh Rosen to be the quarterback of the Buccaneers in the future, then yeah, you're way off base just right now. And if it happens,
Hogwarts. No, sorry, go ahead.
I mean, if it happens, by all means, quote tweet your tweet from August or September of 2020 and pat yourself on the back. But if you're saying that, it's all guesswork. There's absolutely no evidence to say that. But there's also no evidence to say that he can't be. So, I mean, it's a wait and see type of thing. I'm excited because I think it's a good move for him. I think it's a smart and a mature move for him. Like you referenced, Randy, he's still he's younger than Joe Burrow. So, I mean, this dude's got so much career left ahead of him. There's no reason to rush it. There's no reason for him to sign on with like a Pittsburgh and end up playing week 3 after Big Ben gets hurt again. And he's not ready, hasn't been coached, hasn't been, tutored properly. So I think this is a really smart decision for Josh. And honestly, that's the reason I'm more excited, just to see a young kid who chose the smart route that's going to get him less glitz and glam than taking, the opportunity to play and get on the field, because they're all competitors. So, there was part of him that wanted to do it, but he went with the smart decision instead. So I applaud him for it.
And he's still going to make like $4 million, $8,000 this year.
He's making more than Cam Newton. So, I mean,
and Jameis Winston.
Yep.
Combined.
I like where you went with the Princeton thing, because my whole thing was we'll see who's the Harvard of QBs, because it was Peyton and Winston and Arians and Rosen 2022. But Brent, you brought up Hogwarts.
Mm-hmm.
What are the other 2 schools of magic?
Ilvermorny, Beauxbaton, and then there's Durmstrang. And I forget the name of the one in Brazil, which is where the new movie is going to be going.
So what is Slytherin?
We'll discuss that later, but all I can say is
you don't know what Slytherin is?
I don't know anything about Harry Potter, man. I just remember that word for whatever reason.
David, we need to hook you up.
It's it's the last name of one of the 4 wizards that founded Hogwarts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's part of how they do that. All right, so Josh Rosen. Here's the thing, and I think
I had no idea there were that many schools of magic.
Yeah, no, I think there's like 8 around the world or something like that. So anyway,
have you visited them all yet?
Have what?
Have you gone to every location yet?
Yeah, I did a tour when I was trying to figure out which one I wanted to go to.
Ooh.
Yeah.
What'd
it's
you
kinda
decide
like a
on?
college tour. Yeah.
What did you decide on?
I got my letter. I decided to go with just a small private school here in Florida instead.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that went off the rails. Josh Rosen. Here's the last thing I'll say about Josh Rosen. I like the idea that Josh Rosen potentially could be a quarterback of the future, that he could learn, he could train, he could grow up. And I get the feeling just from listening to Jason Light and Bruce Arians both talk about it, like, yeah, they wouldn't mind that either. It's crossed their mind, but that's not where they are right now. They'll wait and see what happens. They'll give him, like, that's why they signed him. Give him a shot. See what happens. It's not going to hurt anything. He's got a much better shot of it than Reed Stinnett ever did, So they'll let him come up and see what happens. And if it works out, great. And if not, it's not that big of a deal. But I don't think we could use the word plan, that he is the plan for the future quarterback here of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, with that, guys, I do want to go in. We mentioned a few times this year they've added a protecting 4 players on the practice squad.
Mm-hmm.
And the 4 players that the Buccaneers have chosen to protect this week is the second kicker, Greg Joseph. They did use it on Josh Rosen. They also used it on Mazzy Wilkins, a cornerback, and on Cyril Grayson, a wide receiver, which we may wind up needing to promote him here soon anyway. However, those are the 4. Ren, you got anything on any of those you want to talk about, or just for the record, just throwing it out there?
I thought this was going to be a lot more fun than it actually is.
Yeah.
When hearing the rule, I'm like, oh, we can guess who the 4 are. And then they do the 4, and it's like, why those 4? Like, that's like, there's something I'm missing, obviously. Now, I guess they want to do Josh Rosen because they only give him 36 hours to possibly change his mind. But again, they could just, if a team comes and offers to him and he says no, he can just call him up and go, hey, I've changed my mind, offer to me again next week. So I don't understand why they're protecting Rosen. I get the kicker, because usually that's an emergency thing. And if it happens like Wednesday, this guy's protected. You have to go find somebody else before Sunday. And if that person works out, I get that. I think sort of like those last 2 spots are going to be where they're thin at. Mike Evans didn't practice all week, or only, did some light practicing. So, they got a wide receiver protected. So again, I thought this was going to be a lot more fun. And when the list came out, I was kind of like, okay, yeah.
There you go. David, I'll give you a shot, man. Anything on these protected guys?
No, it's insurance. So I mean, it's as exciting as all insurance policies are.
I think I'm with you guys. This is about as exciting as an insurance policy, and I thought this would be a much better conversation. Probably won't do this again in future. We might just mention it and move on. But speaking of moving on, let's get to a couple of headlines. There actually, surprisingly, wasn't a ton that came out about the Buccaneers this week. But a few things that I did want to point out. Jason Light in his press conference. By the way, Jason Light normally doesn't schedule a press conference the week right before the game. Is there any word on why he wanted to do one right now, or was this just the Buccaneers saying, hey, let's just throw him out there and that people would probably appreciate it?
I didn't hear anything, but he didn't get to do the owners meeting one where he does, the head coach do the round table, and he's always kind of like around the resort, and all the beat reporters get, some time with him, and he usually does one then. So we haven't heard from Jason Light since the draft. Okay. So it was time, and I always enjoy the Jason Light pressers. I don't like the ones on the radio before the game because that's like talk Jesus flow. I mean, so Jason, do you think you're gonna win this week? Like it's like Tom Brady. What do you like about him? I was like, okay, but it's always fun to listen to the GM because those are the questions, but he does it so few. There's so many questions that are really good questions that only he can answer. Like if he went on every week, it wouldn't be as much fun. But you only get him like 2-3 times a year. It's really glad to hear what comes out of his mouth and what he thinks about players. And I guess like one of the big bombshells, I wouldn't say bombshells, but was how much you alluded to it earlier about Keyshawn Vaughn.
Yeah, that's the one I was getting ready to go to. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, David, go ahead on Keyshawn Vaughn, and I'll follow up you.
I mean,
Well, Well, I'm sorry, for the record, just so people know out there, what Jason Light basically said about Keyshawn Vaughn is that he really came on towards the end of training camp.
Yeah.
And he normally would have only been out there like at the end of OTAs. Like that's the amount of reps he got. And he also mentioned that since the signing of Fournette, Rojo has since taken another step as well. So, put those two in relief. But, David, go ahead. That's just what Jason Light actually said.
Yeah, I mean, going back to April, Keyshawn wasn't on anybody's list of desired targets for the Buccaneers roster coming into draft weekend. So when he was selected, there was kind of a collective letdown. Even there in the third round, after Antoine Winfield Jr. was selected, everybody's like, okay, most of us thought you were going running back, but we are happy with the young safety. We'll take it. And then going into the third round, I think most people, if they had to predict a running back, probably would have leaned more towards a guy like Zach Moss instead of a guy like Keyshawn Vaughn. So as soon as Vaughn was drafted, those of us who don't work at the Draft Network were kind of scrambling to do some homework and do some research.
Who?
Yeah, exactly. We actually reached out to Vanderbilt and got their running backs coach on the phone and did our research kind of that way. But even him, there's not saying he's lying by any means, but there's a reason for him to kind of pump up the player a little bit more. That's his handiwork, But he referenced Keyshawn's maturity and his ability to handle blocking assignments, pass routes, his ability to run and make cuts and read the line and read the defense. And when you go back and look at some of the Vanderbilt tape that is available, you see some of those things. You see some of those skills come out, and you can kind of convince yourself there's a reason the Buccaneers selected him. But then of course the COVID affected offseason obviously has an impact on things. Then he comes in and. As soon as you bring in Shady McCoy, it's like, okay, well, hold up. We must not be sold very much on this Keyshawn Vaughn guy. And then you start hearing about some of the struggles, and then you add Leonard Fournette on top of it. And I don't think Fournette necessarily is an indictment of Keyshawn Vaughn, but I do believe the Shady McCoy signing doesn't happen if Keyshawn Vaughn is coming in having, call it an Antoine Winfield type of training camp where he's getting some confidence grown between him and these coaches. To hear that he came on strong, at the end of camp and these latest practices is encouraging, of course. And again, like we said earlier, Rojo made a big leap from year 1 to year 2. Keyshawn could do the exact same thing. The good news is the Buccaneers at least had, the foresight and the humility even a little bit to say, hey, look, we need some help here. We need some guys to come in and kind of buffer this. So let's go ahead and get these guys and make these moves. So it gives Keyshawn time to catch up without being thrust onto the field.
Are you guys okay with the idea that Keyshawn's coming in as a rookie, picked in the third round, and he's third or fourth on the depth chart, and he just gets to have a year where he gets to be a depth piece rookie?
Yeah, welcome to a team that has a good roster.
There you go.
This is how it's supposed to work, Right. But it was like David said, it was nice to hear from Jason Light. And Jason Light hears it from the coaches. So I think that's the most promising thing. All we've heard from the media, and rightfully so, and they don't get to see all of practice, especially this past week, about, when supposedly this leap has been made. Get to see him actually practice and go against, do the 7-on-7s and the 11-on-11s and things. But, it's with the talent the Buccaneers have in that backfield, they can just stash Keyshawn. I think the reason he's not on the practice squad because he wouldn't have made it through waivers, and they couldn't keep him on the practice squad. So they want to see what he's got. Like Fournette, no guarantee he'll be back next year. Mm-hmm. McCoy, no guarantee he'll be back next year. I would, if it wasn't for special teams, and it still could be, but if I had to place a bet now, I would bet that Keyshawn Vaughn won't be active on Sunday and for most Sundays unless someone gets injured.
Fair enough. Yes, we did that, and then we talked a little bit here about Rojo taking this next step.
Show me.
I was going to ask, do you really believe that Rojo's taken this next step, that Fournette's lit a fire under his ass, I guess, a little bit to not lose his starting role? I mean, because that's been my assumption, quite frankly. Fournette's brought in here.
Yeah,
obviously,
everyone
he's
thinks
not going to take that. He's not going to take
everyone
it the first
says
week.
that. By the
within
end
a
of
few weeks, I think they.
I know you do. I do not. That is so far off my radar.
David, break the tie. Where are you on Fournette? Go down the line.
It's
3
not
weeks,
fair.
give him
David
some
likes
time
you
to be
better.
here.
Listen, Leonard Fournette's another guy. I wasn't high on him coming out of LSU the way that a lot of people were.
Nope.
The injury history, scared me a little bit.
Yeah, not
but
a top
not just
10
that.
guy.
Yeah, definitely not a top 10 guy. Just his running style, his play style. I mean, he's got talent. Like, there's no denying that he has talent. My problem with him is right now and always will be until the day he fixes it, that he doesn't use his biggest strength as much as he needs to. And I think a little bit that goes back to that injury history. I never made it to the NFL, but I had a coach when I was very young saying when you play not to get injured, you're either not going to play very well or you're going to get injured. And I see a little bit too much hesitation out of Leonard Fournette. He dances too much at the line of scrimmage. He's a guy who likes to, I said on our show, there's a difference between being patient and allowing your blocks to develop and hesitating. And what I see in Leonard Fournette is more hesitation than patience. And sometimes when he does, especially in the NFL, if you hesitate as a hole is opening, by the time you get that big old body going back and forward motion, that hole's gone and you're getting stopped. Maybe a 3-yard gain, fine, but that 3-yard gain could have been an 8 or a 12 if you get running downhill. On the edge, when he gets outside against a defensive back, too many times I see him let defensive backs carry him out of bounds. And I mean, dude, you are way too big to be letting a 5'10", 180-pound dude run you to the sideline. You need to be dropping a shoulder into that guy's chest. And then next time he sees you come around that edge, you got to force him into a business decision. And some of those cornerbacks are not going to make the decision that's best for the logo on their helmet. They're going to make the decision that's best for the name on their bank account. And those are the moments where Leonard Fournette can turn a 2-yard gain into a 10-yard gain. We just need to see him hit the hole, man. The biggest game that I watched every single snap. I watched some other stuff, but the biggest game I watched was his Denver game from last year because that was his most productive. So I was like, let me see where this guy is at his most productive, because that's what you want to find out. What does he bring to the team? And it wasn't until the second half that he started running downhill. He started hitting holes without hesitation, and they were losing. And it as an NFL running back, it can't take your team losing in the second half for you to decide you're now going to come in with some thump. You got to do that early, take control early, especially against teams like the Saints. You can't give teams like that the opportunity to get ahead of your squad before you decide to go ahead and go full speed. Getting into pass routes, he's too slow. I saw routes where it almost looks like he's got a chip assignment, but then he doesn't chip anybody before he leaks out into the open field. So it's like, if you're supposed to chip, where's the chip? And if you're not chipping, why aren't you getting out into your route? I remember there was a play where Gardner Minshew had a 7-step drop, and he's trying to get to Fournette. But Fournette, by the time Minshew is getting sacked, Fournette's not even running into his route yet. I mean, you can't do that. If you're not going to pick up part of the blitz, you got to get out there and become a receiver for your quarterback. So those are the things that I have a problem with Leonard Fournette. If this roster and this coaching staff can motivate him to fix those things, then he's definitely has talent. But until he fixes those things, Rojo's got to really stink it up to lose that job.
Something I'll be
So
Can
maybe
you answer the question?
I do not predict Leonard Fournette to take Ronald Jones' starting job, but
Hey,
it
finally.
could happen. It could happen.
I think we're the only two. Thank
Yeah,
God,
I mean, at this point,
thank
we
God
are.
you're
Listen,
here.
definitely.
Listen, if Rojo goes out there and he balls out, they're not gonna take the ball out of his hand.
No,
Right?
exactly.
I just, my thought has been that Fournette's going to come in here and he's either going to push for the starting job and Rojo's going to step up and keep it, or Fournette's going to overtake him. And I think they're glad to have that. I will say this.
But why can't the possibility that just Rojo's better? Like
could be.
like none of your possibilities like Fournette fails. It's like either Rojo is so amazing you can't pull him out, or Fournette's just going to take over. Like there's no where's the Fournette fails like scenario. Like why isn't that in your thought process? Like Leonard Fournette is not fucking Walter Payton. Like what is going on with these
definitely
people?
Fair enough. Listen, I will say this. Here's what I am most interested at this point, though, to see with Leonard Fournette is what does he do now that he's out of Jacksonville? Because as a lot of you guys out there know, I live in Jacksonville, and I've spent this week with my ear to the ground listening to the people here in Jacksonville. Ren, you and I will often talk about when we pick up a player from another team, we'll see what the fans of that team are saying.
Right.
I can tell you, there's not a lot of people in Jacksonville that are sad to see Leonard Fournette go.
No.
He was not a popular guy here in this town. The phrase that I keep hearing is wasted talent. Like he had the potential to do a lot of stuff, but he was falling asleep in meetings. He didn't like being here. He didn't want to be here. He didn't play for the team. I'm interested to see what happens if he comes in now that he finally has a real quarterback and now that he's in a new system, is he still going to be that guy who's just, as you say, David, making business decisions for himself? Or is he really going to come out and play? And are we going to see maybe what the potential Leonard Fournette could have been the whole time? And I don't know if we'll really get a chance, because like we say, if Rojo goes out and he balls out and continues to just be on fire, I don't know that he's going to get a chance to show that off too much. But I'm interested to see what happens as far as Leonard Fournette goes, how he's going to be now that he's out of Jacksonville.
The end.
So, yeah.
I heard three things there. I heard one. I've already forgotten one. But one, I heard David call Leonard Fournette Charles Sims. That's what I heard.
He's got Charles Sims-like tendencies.
Two, I heard what people are saying in Jacksonville is what has not been as advertised or said publicly as much as what Rojo did his rookie year. Yeah. As in, like, not caring. Yeah. Like, just came in there and, like, where's the ball? Where do I line up? I'm the dude. Let's rock and roll. And then didn't understand how to be a pro. And the third one I totally forgot, but it was the best one. The end.
Dang. I promise when you remember it, you will interrupt me.
Oh, yeah. Don't worry.
That's how you work.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's move on, because we've just got a handful.
Slytherin!
Sorry. There you go.
Thank you.
The depth chart comes out this week. And surprise, 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 maybe not, Antoine Winfield Jr.
Future
gets the
Ring of Honor
nod over Mike Edwards.
Future Ring of Honor.
Future Ring of Honor, Ren says. David, what do you think? Antoine Winfield Jr., Future Ring of Honor?
I love it. Yeah, why not?
There we go. But no, like, so this team goes out, drafts Mike Edwards.
David's
last
over
year,
it.
right?
He's ready to go. He's like, how long? When do we start? Like, oh my God, these guys won't shut up.
Okay. Speaking of which, Antoine Winfield gets the starting nod over Mike Edwards. Jordan Whitehead is the other guy going to be starting out there on defense this week. The end. Okay, along with Tristan Wirfs as a point is making that his debut along the offensive line. So I guess they thought he made enough strides in training camp to throw him out there.
Was Tristan Wirfs' job really in jeopardy ever?
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah. I think Winfield's a story there. And, Edwards had a good camp.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like Edwards, he had a good camp, and then it's just, I think Winfield's everything as advertised, and sort of go off on not go off on a tangent, but talk about something. I think you're going to sort of see a lot of these guys come out of Minnesota and PJ Flex program, like guys that are prepared, guys that are pro ready, day one, day two guys that can step in and be who the team expects them to be right away. I'm kind of excited to sort of watch that happen.
Right. Well, with that, we have one more headline. Team captains finally announced. Captains this year are Brady, Evans, David, and White over on defense. And for the first time since we've been doing this show, Ren, two special teams captains, Kevin Mentor and Bradley Pinion. That's our captains for the year.
David, did you want any different captains?
No, I mean, I was a little surprised to have two special teams captains, but hey, I don't. That's I guess that's kind of the question. I mean, it's not a critical question. So, but because I know the players get to vote on the captains, but do they get to vote on two per unit, or how did that decision come about, or did they just feel like Kevin needed that captain's patch so bad, or Bradley needed it so bad that they went with two?
Bradley's the surprise. I think Kevin's the guy that I have assumed would be the special teams captain since Dari left. Like that's not a surprise to me. Bradley Pinion's the surprise. I don't think I've ever seen one of the specialists be a captain on special teams.
Yeah, I'm with you. I thought I thought Minter was a lock. Pretty sure Brady was a lock. Yeah. I knew Mike Evans would have locked, but I really wanted Ryan Jensen sort of to be a captain so he could step up even further, give validation to the leadership role on the offensive line. And then with the defense, I thought Devin White was still a year away. Levante David, and everyone talked about JPP. I wanted Sue. I thought those two guys, like, they're steady, hand on the tiller, very well spoken, very smart people. those are the guys I was looking for. But like if Devin White's ready, let's see it. Even the Tampa media, who's has been scorned, and they're not fans, but has been scorned and seen all these best laid plans fall apart year after year after year. They're even saying like, watch out for Devin White this year. Like, watch out for Devin White this year. And this could just sort of be the teaser to a really a special year for that guy.
Yeah, I mean, I really like Devin White being selected. I wasn't expecting it. I thought it'd be JPP and Levante on the defense. On the offense, there's so many options. I mean, you could justify so many guys to be captains on that side of the ball. So Mike Evans, Tom Brady seem to be kind of your no-brainers. I do actually. I mean, I have some thoughts on Antoine Winfield Jr. being named the starting safety over Mike Edwards. And I think it's interesting because this is a defense that has the opportunity, again, with all the truncated activities this offseason, to come in with the same starting 11, and Todd Bowles has the opportunity to put his same starting unit. Granted, Andrew Adams played more than Mike Edwards did there towards the end, but had that same unit kind of on the field with that unity and with that cohesiveness. And instead they decide to, I won't say disrupt it, but they kind of do disrupt it by inserting that rookie. So again, it kind of speaks to just how much that guy came out. Antoine Winfield came out into training camp and ready to go as a pro. I'm sure his dad had influence on that. PJ Fleck, like you said, Ren, that program has a great reputation under him, had a lot to do with that. So I'm very excited. I mean, I won't crown him a Ring of Honor guy yet, but it's obvious that he's coming in definitely on that trajectory. So it'll be interesting because, again, talking to Ross Jackson of the Locked On Saints podcast, he fully expects, just like I do, I'm sure most people do, he expects Drew Brees to target him early and often and really kind of test and see if the rookie can make the right reads, see if he can manipulate him easily with his eyes and his route combinations and everything else. And, so Antoine Winfield Jr. is going to have a lot of weight on his shoulders, but I feel like if the coaching staff, especially Todd Bowles, if Todd Bowles is confident enough running him out there week one as a starter, then everybody else should have confidence in it and honestly be excited because it could be the start. I mean, this team hasn't had a Pro Bowl safety since John Lynch, and I'm not saying that Antoine Winfield is going to do it this year, but this could be the beginning of the next Pro Bowl career for a Buccaneers safety.
Yeah, the whole Ring of Honor conversation came about because I said that in like 2 or 3 years, the way we talked about Sapp, Brooks, and Lynch, it's going to become Vea, White, and Winfield. And Brent's like, "Oh, Ring of Honor guy," and I was like, "I had to make a decision." And so what you're saying is that he's gonna be the best safety of all time. And it's like, but yeah, it's fun, right? It's fun right now to be like future Ring of Honor guy. So that's where that came from.
Yeah, hey, if Josh Rosen can start for the Bucs in 2022, then Antoine Winfield Jr. can be in the Ring of Honor.
Oh, he'll be in the Hall of Fame by then if Josh Rosen starts.
All right, guys. Well, with that, why don't we transition over? Let's talk about this Saints game just a little bit. We'll start by looking at the injury report coming out. We'll look at the New Orleans Saints. PJ Williams is listed as questionable, but most notably, Cesar Ruiz, their rookie guard, and Marcus Davenport, one of their defensive ends, are both out for this game.
Yeah, Cesar Ruiz, is he playing guard or center?
They've got him listed as a guard center, but my understanding, David, you probably know this better than I do, is he is actually playing the guard position. Is that right?
He was on their depth chart as a guard, yeah.
Okay, yeah, he was an early draft choice for them out of Michigan, and he was supposed to obviously step in. The Saints have a very, very good track record in drafting offensive linemen, so it can only help the Buccaneers. Davenport has not panned out as their number one. That took 2 number ones to get him. A couple of years ago, they traded up, and then next year's number one to go get this edge guy, and he just has not, like, he's Noah Spenced him. Maybe not quite that bad, but he's not worth 2 number ones and hasn't even flashed anywhere close to doing that. So that can help the Buccaneers too. So as far as the Saints, injury report goes, they're definitely 2 pluses for the Buccaneers, at least off that part.
Yeah, I mean, while you don't want to celebrate injuries to players, from a strategic standpoint, it's obviously a big advantage for the Buccaneers if Marcus Davenport and Cesar Ruiz aren't on the field. I mean, I think Ruiz was expected to become the starting center there in New Orleans, and McCoy was supposed to shift over to guard. But I mean, this injury is probably something that's been a long time coming, something he's probably been dealing with for most of camp, and so they've had to adjust their plan. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see because we expect Levante David and Devin White to become a bigger part of the pass rush. Well, Now that they have one of their interior starting offensive linemen out of the game, how does that impact that game plan? They're obviously the pass rush, I think, is going to have to target that hole, see if that backup can withstand that pressure. And then, the loss of Marcus Davenport just helps. We talk about helping Tristan Wirfs. Press conference questions were focused pretty heavily this week on, whether or not Tristan Wirfs was going to need help, that 12 personnel package.
How are you going to survive?
Yeah. Having a 12 personnel base offense is going to help in that anyway. And then, if you have a running back helping the chip. But Marcus Davenport's not on the field, then you can shift a little bit more attention to Cam Jordan and not sacrifice some of your offensive ability. So that obviously helps too. And like you said, Ren, I mean, honestly, when the Saints made that trade to grab Davenport, there's almost no way. I mean, unless this dude becomes a perennial all-pro edge rusher, there's almost no way he's gonna warrant that draft capital price tag they spent on him. But hey, they went out there and got him, and I think this is kind of a make it or break it year. Not that he's gonna be released if he doesn't live up to the hype, but this is definitely a year that the Saints and Saints fans have been looking for Marcus Davenport to step it up and starting the week missing game week one. I mean, starting the season missing week one does not help. But not Noah Spence status just yet.
Is Cesar Ruiz ducking Vita Vea? Is he
I think
scared?
so. Yeah, I mean, I think he's just scared. I mean, he is a Michigan guy, so they don't really like facing top shelf talent. So I mean,
that's true.
It would
That's
make
true.
sense that he would want to duck this competition.
There isn't a school that does less with more talent than Michigan.
Right.
Wow.
Except for really LSU. It's really LSU and Michigan second. Like
All right,
LSU should have like 9 titles. They should be Alabama, but they had a freaking loony bird as their coach. The end.
Let's flip over and talk about the good guys now. Let's talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. There were actually several people on this injury report. All of them are going to play, though, with the potential exception of one. But just to go through that list real quick, Andrew Adams, Parnell Motley, and Ryan Smith all had either hamstring or ankle injuries. They were full participation by Thursday, so they will be expected to go. JPP and Ndamukong Suh both took effectively, I guess, Veterans Days or just had non-injury related days off. So they hit the chart, but they're all going to play. The only question mark is Mike Evans, and that's a big one for us. And everybody knows he's got a hamstring injury, ended last year with a hamstring injury. This seems like it's new. This is not a carryover from last year. But he did not participate Wednesday, did not participate Thursday. He was out working out today and was limited in his participation. He's currently listed as doubtful, and doubtful means likely to not play. Doesn't mean he won't, but it's likely to not play. And Bruce Arians has said he'll take this all the way up to the game time decision with him. So tell me, guys, I've got Mike Evans on my fantasy roster. Should I switch him out now, or should I hang on to him just for a little bit and see?
I think you should wait till right before kickoff when they tell you if he's playing or not. Actually, I might switch him out. And here's the thing. Brent, how I always talk about how one thing has these rippling effects, and that's, the minutia is kind of really the fun part about following a professional football team. If Mike Evans doesn't play, that means Lattimore is going to follow Godwin around.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying Godwin can't get open or, he can't have a good game, but it makes it a lot harder instead of Godwin going up, against their number 2, because Lattimore will follow Mike Evans around all game long. So now you've got Scotty Miller or Justin Watson on their second corner. And if any team that has linebackers that possibly can cover and have sort of neutralized the best way, we're not trying to stop them, we're just trying to contain them. The Buccaneers tight ends, it's the Saints. So, with if Mike Evans can go like at 80%, and I'm not looking to get injured, obviously, but I'd rather have him out there because then that opens up Godwin. And that opens up, and can help open up the middle for the tight ends. If Mike Evans doesn't go, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's not crazy talk to say Lattimore will shut Godwin down. It's not absurd. We don't want it to happen at all. And there's probably a fear there where man, you're probably going to give it a less percentage chance than actually it does. And then the ripple effects go down to Miller and Watson and all those guys. So, yeah, it's a big deal as far as continuity and getting out there and be able to attack the Saints defense, which is a very good defense with all the weapons that we really have.
Yeah, you absolutely want Mike Evans out there, and for all the reasons that Ren just stated, even more than just the fact that he's Mike Evans. From a fantasy standpoint, though, Brent, you kind of said it in jest, but it's legit because the Buccaneers have an afternoon game. So all of those 1 o'clock start games, all those receivers are going to be unavailable if you have Mike Evans slotted as a starter. So you're only looking at 7 teams that you can choose from to fill in for Mike Evans if he becomes inactive, unless the Bucs declare him out early, which I don't think, from the words that Bruce Arians is saying, they're not going to declare him out by noon. You know what I mean? So that's basically what you're looking for. So I mean that is a decision that that people are going to have to make. If you've got Michael Gallup sitting on your bench while Mike Evans is in your starting lineup, you might want to go ahead and throw Gallup in there until you have an answer. But
because the other thought that occurs to me is, even if they do play Mike Evans,
right,
he could be relatively limited as well.
Right.
So he'll play, but he may not play as much or as hard as you might expect him, or he may tweak his hammy in the middle of the game and then be out, and then you're done anyway.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, and in the ultimate chess match that is football, with an extended active roster because of the whole COVID thing and all that stuff, you could activate him. You could have him actually active on your roster coming into that game to force the Saints to plan for him, and then he never even steps on the field. He's just there kind of in an emergency situation, down 6 with 2 minutes to go. Maybe you throw him in there to force Lattimore to cover him instead of going over there to Godwin, whatever you need to do. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that this coaching staff could do, that this team could do with Mike Evans. It's definitely a sticky situation. I wouldn't push him out there personally if he wasn't 100%, but that's kind of, I'm not a no risk it, no biscuit guy as much as Bruce is.
That's the debate in the fandom is, should Mike go if he's able, or should they hold him back and just let him, basically have the week?
I would hold him back. If he's not 100%, I would hold him back, but I'm not Bruce Arians.
I'm always in the camp, if the player can't go, they can't go, but if they can, they should. Right. I know that doesn't make any sense, but if Mike can go, then he should go.
And Mike's going to want to go. If he can get cleared, he's definitely going to want to be out there.
And he's not going to get cleared with the doctor going, well, there's a 50-50 chance you're going to pull it again. Like, that's not cleared. Like, it's like you can go out there and run as fast as you want and push as hard as you want, and you will be fine for this certain injury. Mm-hmm. So, that's kind of where I lie on it. But again, like, if I had him in fantasy, I don't even know. I don't know if I feel comfortable starting him, and just because of the injury.
If I had a decent option, I would definitely plan to replace him.
So it may be a day. So if Mike doesn't go out, Lattimore is going to be on Godwin. If you've got Scotty on your fantasy team, maybe start Scotty.
Yeah, but then he's facing Janoris Jenkins, and I mean, that's not an easy matchup, for any wide receiver. Even Chris Godwin's going to have some problems with Janoris Jenkins if he has to match up against him. And then at the same time, do you play Justin Watson in the slot, or do you play Justin Watson outside in 3 receiver set and move Scotty into the slot, where neither of those guys is really a quote unquote, typical slot guy? Yeah.
I'll tell you what has occurred to me though this week, because with the Mike Evans injury, you guys have heard it all off season long. We did this a couple of years ago, but it's all this: who you gonna cover? Look at all the weapons we got on offense. We got Mike Evans. We got Chris Godwin. We got Scotty Miller. We got Gronk.
We got OJ. Jackson.
We got Cam. We got Rojo. We got all these guys. Who you gonna cover? One guy goes down. Granted, he's our top guy, but still, one guy goes down, and it's like, what's gonna happen?
No, it's still
also
who you're
the
gonna
Saints
cover.
defense though too.
Yeah, and it's still who you're gonna cover, because like we barely mentioned the tight ends in that. We were just sort of talking about how it affects the wide receiver room.
Sure.
I mean, you got 3 tight ends, and then you still got Shady who can catch, and Fournette thinks he's the greatest receiver, and then we'll see what Rojo can do. So, I mean, there's still plenty of options. It would make me feel better if, like, just put Mike out there and have Lattimore follow him around and just never throw him the ball.
Just use Mike as a decoy then.
Yeah. Just take their best player off the field, because taking our best offensive weapon off the field doesn't nearly hurt as much as it hurts their defense.
That is true.
But
if this was week 2 and we're talking about the Panthers and the Bucs instead of the Saints and the Bucs, I'm honestly just saying give Mike Evans a week off just to rest, to save him fresh for the rest of the season, because I don't care.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
But the Saints defense is a little bit different, of a different beast. So
there you go.
Do you think Jameis Winston is active Sunday?
Yes.
Brent?
Is it's still, they got to have 46, only 46 active? And
Well,
we
you
have
can
that
do
too.
you can do 48.
You can do 48. One of them has to be an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say yes. Because it sounds like such a Sean Payton thing to do.
Exactly.
That's exactly
where I'm going.
Yeah,
It's
I would
just a
say
Sean-
no, but
even
like,
if they
yeah.
don't intend to do anything,
They're gonna
with
run a
him,
package with him. You know, they're gonna run a
they're gonna put him
package
out
with
there.
him.
They're gonna
Yeah.
put him out there.
They're gonna put him
heaven
in
You
the
will see
forbid.
Jameis Winston play this week. I
Guys,
guarantee it.
heaven forbid the Saints are up 17 with like 3.5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter and they have the ball. Jameis is coming in that game.
Right, and you know what? Entire Bucs Nation is gonna say, "Woohoo! We just won."
Start the comeback.
Here's the pick six. Oh,
Quick,
geez.
somebody side Darius
Davis,
Leonard.
get ready. Put Jamel Dean in. And just pull the whole defensive line. Just get those guys back there. We'll be fine. Put Mike Evans in on defense. Actually, that'd be
All of a
funny.
sudden, the
Put
middle
all the wide
linebacker has
receivers
become
in on
invisible.
defense when Jameis comes in. All right, guys. Well, I'll give you guys one hit each as we wrap up the show. Matchups to watch. What are you looking forward to seeing out of this game this weekend? David, you're the guest, so I'll let you go first.
I'm going to go with Devin. So I'm going to kind of cheat a little bit. I'm going with Devin White and Levante David against Alvin Kamara. That's my matchup to watch because I think if they can, again, it starts and ends with that front seven and the running game. And the running game, the passing to the running back is an extension of that running game. If they can keep Alvin Kamara bottled up the way that they did with guys like Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, et cetera, then it takes a lot of pressure off of the secondary in the sense that it becomes harder and harder for them to really mix up their offense, and it forces Drew Brees and the Saints to get a little bit more one-dimensional. They're not really ever going to get one-dimensional, but it takes a little bit of a dimension away from them. It takes some of that pressure off of that still very young secondary. And if Antoine Winfield Jr. goes out there and makes a mistake, it's a little bit easier to cover for it when you have a secondary that's not worried about the running back.
Ren, matchup you're looking forward to watching.
I'm going with pocket aces, man. I'm going with like the one person no one's worrying about. It's Tom Brady. Like this is the first time with a new offensive line, new verbiage, all new teammates, against a very good defense. He's smart and he's picked it up, but he hasn't had to play at this fast against this talent with this many plays in a row.
Right.
It was like they did a 17-play drive, and it was like the word was half the offense was like puking and I can't take it anymore, and like well, you got 60 minutes of this, so it's going to be real interesting. Not only, and I don't really think Brady's not going to be able to pick it up and he's going to make all these mistakes, but I'm really going to be watching his interactions with his guys. When there is an incomplete pass, and maybe it is O.J. Howard's fault that he ran the wrong way. Like, how is that interaction going to go? Or his interaction with his offensive line. How big, and I think the thing we all really want to know is how big is that towel bump going to be in Jensen's pants?
Oh, my gosh. And how powdered. Are you going to see the talcum cloud come out?
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be at least 3 questions, after the game, some Zoom questions.
All right, guys. Well, let's round this out. We're going to bring in a brand new segment, I guess, that we've never done before on the show, but it's not really a new segment. I was texting back and forth with our old friend, Derek Fournier, formerly host of What the Buck, that podcast, which we've often said is the godfather of Buccaneers podcast. Derek was doing this long before the iPhone ever became a thing. He was still doing it when podcasts were listened to on iPods. Right?
Yeah.
Where they actually got their name from, yeah.
Exactly. And one of the segments that he used to do on his show, and so we're going to do this sort of as an homage to Derek, as an homage to What the Buck, and we're going to bring it in and kind of revive it. And Derek was like, I'd love for that to be revived, so go for it. So, Derek, you're watching out there. You're listening. This one's for you, pal. He does a segment called Swords and Skulls. Now, he usually does that on his post-game show where he hands out a sword, like who was the best player and who was the worst player. But on his pre-show, he does Predictive MVP. So let's do, David, I'll go to you. Who do you think is going to be the MVP for the Bucs this week rolling into the Saints?
Devin White. I think that Devin is coming into the season with his hair on fire, and it's not going to get extinguished until they hit the postseason, hopefully the Super Bowl. I think that Devin White is out. Really, I mean, it's kind of weird. It's almost like he's coming in with a chip on his shoulder. He doesn't have to have a reason to have a chip on his shoulder, but he remembers, and he talked earlier during training camp about missing or being sick for that first game and then getting injured in the second game and missing some of that time early on. And on how excited he was to get his NFL career started, and then how it got derailed before it really even got started with that illness before week one. And then coming back from that, and it took a little bit of time for him to ramp up, but then eventually you saw the playmaker in him. You saw why he was the number 5 overall draft pick in the 2019 NFL draft. And I think he's just looking forward to getting out there, being healthy to start week one, getting out there, getting a season under his belt the right way. I think that speaks a little bit to the leadership mentality of him and why he's a captain on this team. And I mean, this is a statement game. I think the NFL wants nothing more than to have Tom Brady lose and Bill Belichick win. I mean, the Buccaneers are on the road against the Saints. The Pats are at home against the Dolphins. So if this goes the way the NFL wants, all NFL Network is going to be talking about is how Bill Belichick is 1-0 without Tom Brady, while Tom Brady is 0-1 without Bill Belichick. And so I think Devin White is looking forward to making sure that when NFL Network, everybody's talking about the Bucs in week one, they're talking about them going into the division champs home stadium and coming out with a win.
I like it. On defense, he's, Levante David probably the only be safer pick. But I think Devin White, we've talked about how high people have been on, and they're sort of, the Bucs coaching staff's sort of keeping it on low key, but the beat reporters are starting to pick up on it. But I'm going with offense.
P. Schrags named Devin White as his defensive player of the week this week.
To watch.
Yeah,
to watch. Yeah, I think he put him in top 10 of the NFL 100 for next year already.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Pete Schrags loves him some horses.
Yeah, he's all over it.
He is all over it. But I'm going with someone who might have the most to prove. Even if Mike Evans plays or doesn't play, I still think Brady's gonna get rid of the ball quick and spread it around. And I think, if you have 6 catches, you'll probably lead the team, which isn't crazy for NFL standards, but by Buccaneer standards the past 5 years, it's 11. That's what you needed to lead the team in receiving numbers. So I'm going with Ronald Jones. I think Rojo has got something to prove. He's got Fournette on his butt. McCoy's here. They're both, really good pass catching backs. He's put a lot of work into it. Rojo's last 4 games, I've been talking about it all off season, were so good. And look, if you want to see what Rojo can be, do the last 4 games of the Buccaneers season. And I think Bruce Arians came out and said it just 2 or 3 days ago. He's like, Rojo's last 4 games were really good. So I think, if anybody's going to win it on offense, I just think Rojo's the guy.
I like it. Just so you know, Rick Bell, who's watching us live over on Facebook, also agrees with you. He says Rojo because he needs to prove that he's number 1. I think Tom Brady is going to be one of those guys. I just have to keep him in the penalty box.
Yeah.
Whenever we do this, because it could be him any given week. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because it's just him. But I think I'm gonna go with Devin White again. I'm gonna team up with David over there on him because I'm so excited to see what he does, and I keep hearing the hype about him. So I'm gonna go with Devin White as team MVP. But I think that this is always gonna have an asterisk next to me, just saying, because it could be Brady on any particular given week.
It's like Tiger in the field. You're taking Tiger in the field.
Exactly. Frank G over on YouTube says Tom Brady. G Vegas on YouTube also says Brady because Brady will not throw pick sixes or those "what are you doing" type throws.
Well, that's what they say. Well, we'll see.
We'll see. I mean, Tom Brady has some interceptions. He has not played his career without some. So, it's going to happen at some point. I don't think he's had a year where he has 0. So
those are all the receivers' faults, or the offensive line's fault, or the coach's fault,
right?
Or the defense's fault.
Never Tom.
Or what else? Who else's fault is it? I forget. Oh, the head coach.
Pretty sure one of them was Ren's fault.
Yeah, one was my fault at one point.
Ren's fault.
Yeah.
There you go. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for us. That's going to wrap us up as we head into the Saints game. Nothing to it but to do it now, as they say. David, man, thank you so much for coming and joining Ren and I here for the last hour and 15 minutes or so out here talking Buccaneers, looking at the Saints and all the stuff that's coming up. Tell the folks what's going on with you over at bucsnation.com and Locked On and all the places that they can get in touch with you out there, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Again, always happy to jump on with you guys. And, everybody can check out my work at bucsnation.com, doing the X Factors and the Know Your Enemy posts again this year for them before the game, and then after the game I'll do some rookie recap type stuff, and I've got some fantasy stuff coming out every week as well. So just kind of a little bit of everything, doing as much as I can over there. And then on Twitter at DHarrison82, of course, the Locked On Bucs podcast, and that's on Twitter at Locked On Bucs. We have a voicemail line. I don't have the number memorized because James always says it. So just go listen to an episode of that, and you'll hear James say where to call in. But yeah, we love the interaction with people. You know, it's a lot of fun. We appreciate everybody who's been listening. You guys know, I mean, Tom Brady effect is everywhere, right? The numbers are through the roof, and we couldn't be more appreciative of people who are interacting and listening to our show, and then of course to great shows like yours. Following in the footsteps of the great old school, and trying to carry that mantle as much as we can.
Ren,
Yes.
tell the folks where they can find you on the internet.
Well, I'm giving David a skull for this appearance. Best place to find me is on Twitter at Rendax, REN_DAXT, or sometimes DEXT. I'm always down to talk Buccaneers football, but if you don't want to put your opinion out on blast, you can always slide in my DMs, and we can talk Buccaneers football there as well.
David, just by the fact that you gave me somebody to talk to other than Ren for the last hour, you're getting a sword this week, my friend.
Happy to help.
If you guys want to get in touch with me, you can find me at
Did I do it wrong? I did it wrong. I meant to give him the good one. Did I give him the bad one?
You gave him the bad one, yeah. The skull's the bad one, the sword's the good one.
See, I still I swear to
15
God.
years on What the Buck, they still could never get it right.
I did not know how to read an Anglong clock, if that's even a word, but you know what I mean.
Analog.
There you go.
Analog
Thank you.
clock.
Thank you. Hey, I have learning disabilities. I can't read.
Oh, now I feel bad for laughing at you. Oh my
No,
gosh.
I'm not 12. Oh, mommy, my life is ruined. I don't have the right pair of jeans, and Brenton said I'm a retard. Can't say that word. Brenton, I was mentally disabled. Can I say that? I don't know. Anyway, the point, it took me. I was in my 20s before I could read a clock, without taking 15 seconds to figure it out. Yeah. There's just some things I don't make sense to me, and Skulls and Swords is one of them. A clock is one of them.
So David gets the good one, huh?
I was trying to give him the good one, and I ruined it.
appreciate
You sound like you appreciate it.
That was Ren Dext interfering there with the show for a second.
Nice. There you go. Ended on a David joke. That
There
never
you go.
happened.
All right, you guys want to get in touch with me, Brent Allen Live across all social medias. The show is at the Pewtercast, at gmail.com, at the Pewtercast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Also, go check out our brand new website at thepewtercast.com. Guys, we'll see you Sunday night after the game. Ren and I will be going live. We'll be taking your phone calls as we'll be talking about the game, giving our immediate reactions. We'll see you there at Pewtercast Live. Until next time, guys, go Bucs.